Hi, hello, and welcome to my channel. It is your girl, Chris Alicia, aka Chris, and today we are doing quintessential booktube intro, channel trailer, if you will. We are doing the newbie tag. I have the 10 questions up here pulled up on the iPad just so that I can refer to them and, answer them correctly. One thing you'll learn about me is I'm really good for a rant because I will lose track of what I'm talking about. So hopefully this will keep me on task, but also help me explain what I want to accomplish with this channel, why I started this channel, I guess like the little niche I hope to fill in on YouTube and Booktube specifically. So with that being said, go ahead, grab a nice little water. I will always have some handy dandy tea next to me. So cheers to you. You're gonna notice that if I ever drink tea on camera, I will be so conscious of it spilling on me because I am so clumsy. It's actually really sad. Anywho, let's go ahead and jump into question one. Number one, why did you start this channel? So I started this channel for a couple of reasons. One is because if you know me in real life, you know books are basically a personality trait for me. I talk about books with anyone that will listen, with anyone that won't listen. I'm still going to talk to you about books. And from the experience that I've had on like watching people talk about books on Booktube specifically, I realized that a lot of the books people talk about are not necessarily books that I would read, but I enjoy their content because of like their personalities. So the first part is so that I can see people talk about books that I want to read and find other people that enjoy reading the same types of books as me. But also I am doing this as a way to learn some creative expression. I have always told myself I'm not a creative person, but I'm like a creative appreciator, and I'm trying to break myself out of that and challenge myself to do something new. And not only do something new, but actually stick with it. So like on my bookshelf, I do a bookshelf tour that actually should be posted the same day this is being put up. But you'll see I have a crochet kit and an embroidery kit and like painting supplies. And these are all things that I really enjoy and want to keep doing, but I just don't have accountability for myself. I'm hoping that with this channel, I can kind of blend in things that I want to learn and get better at through a creative lens while also meshing it with books. So trying to blend that content of book things, but also book adjacent things. So it's not just me sitting in front of a screen talking about a book that I hope people would like, but creating like an experience where people are engaged with the book, but also something else going on, if that makes sense. I think this is how my brain works. So if this doesn't make sense, I'm so sorry, but it also makes perfect sense to me. Sorry. Question number two, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? Great question. I think for me, this kind of goes into a lot of what I just said in the initial one. I'm not going to say that this is going to be truth for everyone, but I plan on creating content that I think is fun and things that I would like to see other people do. So again, like creating content that can be book centric, but we're talking about a book and we're doing something else with it. So I think the second video that's gonna be posted on my channel is me reading a graphic novel called Wash Day Diaries while I'm actually going through a wash day routine for myself. So trying to integrate some of the book stuff with real world things, because a lot of the books that I do read are rooted in real life. So I think there's a lot of very easily translatable book content that can be made out of that. I think additionally, even when I'm still trying to find and get in touch with Booktube in general, I don't see a lot of Latinas. So hopefully being able to start this channel, I'm also able to see other Latina booktubers or other Latin booktubers in general and gain connections that way. Maybe this isn't necessarily super unique. I know there's a ton of other people that read like this. I read from mainly Black, Indigenous, and other peoples of color. So usually in the books that I'll be reviewing, that's going to be the primary content of that. So it might not necessarily be books that everyone's talking about because we know the issues in publishing and what kind of gets pushed out and marketed, but it's also highlighting maybe books that you've never heard of or books that you don't see your favorite creators talking about as much. So hopefully one of the videos that I put out helps you see a different type of book that you've never heard of. And I think in addition to just like racial diversity in the reading that I pick up, I also read a lot of queer books by queer authors and about queer people, but also trying to look into other layers of identity. So also exploring different types of books with disability and representation from not Western cultures and breaking out of that. So I think if any of that is something you'd be interested in, stay tuned. That's the kind of books I read. I think my brand of content is also just not going to be like super polished. I think that's the best way to say that. Like, it's not going to have crazy production value. It's probably going to be me in front of a wall talking about something. And again, I like to rant. So if you want to hear a rant about some random thing that you didn't ask for, I'm your girl. So yeah, that is what I hope to bring to Booktube. And editing, Chris will cut out anything that didn't make sense because I'm sure there was a lot. Question 3. What are you most excited about for this new channel? I think for me, what I'm most excited about is being able to push myself to try something different. I am a massive introvert, so, talking to people is not my strength. And it's honestly like anxiety inducing. And I think even just recording the videos that I have so far, and like no one's seen them yet, obviously you'll have seen them because I posted them at this point. But like this video that I'm recording right now is probably like the 6th or 7th video I recorded. And just seeing my own comfort increase from video to video has been like super dope for me to even see, and something I didn't expect to happen. I mean, it was something I was hoping for. I was hoping that this would, help me gain a sense of confidence and accountability to keep doing something that I set my mind to and something that I want to do. So I think for me, what I'm hoping to accomplish and what's most exciting about this for me is the growth that I hope to exhibit, and I already kind of feel myself exhibiting. Okay, we're gonna not get mushy or sentimental, so we're gonna cut that there. Number 4, why do you love reading? I love reading because it is a form of escapism for me. Like, I think that's one thing that I really value about reading is even if I'm just sitting inside my house, I feel like I'm transported somewhere else and I'm almost like living another life and getting to experience someone else's experience for just, a split second or for just like the time I'm reading it, and then kind of learn from their experience and keep building on that. Like, I feel like I get to be someone else for a little bit, which I think is super cool because like even some of the books that I've read recently, like even if I can't relate to that person's story exactly, I would still glean something from their experience, and it'll help me understand, part of myself and why I do things the way I do, or why I react to some things the way I do. And I think that's always such a beautiful moment where you're able to read something and you're able to gain the understanding of, someone else, but also better understand yourself a little bit as well. And I think that's the other part of why I love reading. I love learning about other people's experiences. And I read a lot of fiction, but a lot of the fiction I do read, you can tell the author is kind of speaking about their personal experience. So even though I am very understanding that, like I said, I read a lot of like books by BIPOC authors, obviously people are not a monolith and I don't take it that way, but it's also me reading one person's experience. And even then, that's helpful for me to understand this is one person's lived experience. So this is what they felt and how they dealt with things, and using that as an understanding to apparently the laundry's done. Anywho, it helps basically advise me in understanding how one person can handle a situation, and then reading another book can either expand on that experience or show me a completely different way someone handles something. So not using these experiences to say like, this is the Mexican experience, this is a Cuban experience, this is the Black American experience, this is the Chinese experience, this is a Japanese American experience. Like, that's not what I use it for. It's more so using those anecdotes to just understand how people think as people. is really interesting to me. That's why I love reading. Number 5, what book or series got you into reading? This is a good question because I think throughout my life, I have always been very in and out with reading. I think the past couple years has been the most consistent I've been with reading. But like, I remember being in like kindergarten or first grade and going to the Scholastic Book Fair and begging my parents to give me money to get the entire Junie B. Jones series. So I had that collection growing up. And then as I got a little bit older, I moved on to Goosebumps and I read that whole series. And then I got a little bit older, I moved on to Fear Street and then read that whole series. And then in middle school, I got back into reading after not reading for a while and got really into the Click series. And that got me back into reading at that point in my life. And then in high school, I didn't really read as much just because I had a lot more reading to do for class. And anyone that's like in academics in any capacity knows that like once you have to read for school, it just completely takes the fun out of reading, unfortunately. But in college, I was introduced to like the Hunger Games, and that got me back into reading. And then I went into the Divergent series, and then that was when like the whole dystopian glow up was on and popping, and I was living for it. So I think that's what ended up getting me back into reading at that point. And then I took a break again just because I think, especially in college and probably throughout my time, even in grad school, I used reading as a coping mechanism rather than something I did for like leisure. So I think in that point in my life, I really associate reading with like a dark time just because I was reading like just the saddest shit that I could find because I was sad and I wanted to be sad with someone else. So I had fallen off from reading a little bit. And then a few years ago, like January 2020, I was like, yeah, I'm going to start reading again. And honestly, I've been reading pretty consistently since then. I don't remember what got me back into it, but I'm thankful for whatever book it was. So thank you to that book. You're a real one. Number 6, when did I start reading? I answered that with the other question. I started reading at different points in my life, but I think I remember really realizing that I enjoyed reading kindergarten to first grade with Junie B. Jones. And then in elementary school, I talked about Goosebumps and Fear Street. I also really, really, really love the series of Unfortunate Events. I completely forgot about that till right now. So I will also contribute that to the series that kept me in my reading grind. Number 7, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? This is a hard one. I think the first thing I would ask is, what made you want to start this and what keeps you motivated? I think there's a couple of booktubers I think of initially, like with Cindy, I think was the first booktuber I can say I enjoy watching this for like the content and not just learning about the books, because some of her videos that I find the most interesting, I will literally never read the book and I have no interest in reading it, but the way she does her content is so engaging and it feels like I'm just fucking around with a friend. And I love that energy. How do you think of those types of video ideas, but also how do you maintain that authenticity throughout all of your videos so that it still remains something that you're just as interested in doing and doesn't feel like work, you know? Another question I have specifically, I would ask like Books and Lala. When I talk about the genres I read, they don't really align with the books that she typically reads, but I find her content so engaging and so relaxing to listen to that she can spend 2 hours talking about some thrillers that I know I'm never going to read, but I'm going to be thoroughly entertained the entire time. How do you come up with your book adjacent content? Let me ask that instead, because I think some of the things that I've enjoyed by her and was kind of inspired by her are like a lot of the secret TBRs where, yeah, she reads these different books, but like that's not the exciting part of the videos. How do you make some of these videos that are like heavily surrounding books still interesting and almost not make the books the focal point, if that makes sense? Which I don't know if it does, but again, it makes perfect sense in my head. And I think lastly is, how do you know when it's kind of time to change up how you do things? Is it when you see that there's different trends happening, or is it when it's like the things that you're doing just aren't fun for you? Those are the questions I have right now. Also, like, do you edit your own videos? Because I've been editing and it's honestly kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie. But also I'm just like, I feel like, yeah, trying to learn how to edit and make it like, bam, engaging, not my forte. We're trying. I promise you, it's gonna get exponentially better with time. So start at this first video, and by the time you're like at 20, you're gonna be like, damn, this is the same person, and be like, yeah, this is the same person. Progress. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? For me, I think it's gonna be the consistency. And I say this because I have started so many hobbies and have had all the intentions of completing them and keep going with them and getting great at them. But my brain tells me we're not interested in this anymore, so we stop. So I think for me, that level of accountability and consistency is probably going to be the biggest challenge, just because I know how my brain works. And I love her to death, but sometimes she doesn't do what I need her to do. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I think the other one is going to be just imposter syndrome in general. Like, I live with imposter syndrome every day of my life, and I know it's going to continue onto booktube. And I think where that's going to show up for me is the content I want to make, I feel like is not what I see on booktube as much, or I don't know how it's going to be received because it's not, I guess, like the booktube staples. And I'm kind of staying away from a lot of the booktube staples, I think is the way I'll describe that, because that's not stuff that I watch. So trying to remember that I'm making content for myself, and that if other people want to watch it, that's fantastic, that's great. But trying to remember that I need to prioritize my own wants and needs in creating this channel, and not just kind of follow into the flow of what everyone else is doing, because what they're doing works for them really, really well. And if they're creating it, I hope that means that they really like creating it. And just reminding myself that it's okay to be different. It's okay to do things that you find interesting, and you're doing it for you. And hopefully there is someone else that stumbles across the videos that you're making and you're like, oh, this is also really cool and fun. And this makes me want to keep watching this type of thing. I'm not going to say like everything I do is super unique. Obviously, I'm going to try my best. But like, people do things without other people knowing. Ramble over. Those are the things: my consistency and my imposter syndrome. Question 9. What do you read? If you can kind of get a peek at anything on my shelf, I read mainly like YA, new adult, contemporary fiction. I'll dabble in some nonfiction, and when I do read nonfiction, it's either memoirs or nonfiction specifically speaking from the lens of a marginalized individual. These are just the genres I prefer reading. Like I said, I prefer my reading to be rooted in reality. I do use it as a sense of escapism, but it's almost like escapism from my current life and being in someone else's shoes. A lot of it is really heavy sometimes, but also a lot of it is really light. And I think that's why I like it, because it paints an accurate picture of life. Like, not everything is gonna be rainbows and butterflies, but not everything is always gonna be super terrible all the time. So I like that relatability factor. Also, like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I have the brain for fantasy. I don't want to feel like I'm working while I'm reading. It just takes me out of it. I think that's part of the reason I also don't like mysteries and thrillers that much. I'm like, I feel like I need to remember too much information so that like the payoff actually hits. That's a lot of pressure on myself, and I don't want to put that pressure on myself, but tea break. But I mean, if you know any more contemporary-ish books that fall into either like a fantasy realm or a mystery thriller realm, like, I'm willing to give it a try. And I think that's the thing. I'm willing to give anything a try. I just know that if I want to read a book that I'm going to enjoy, I'm more likely going to pick up a contemporary book, just because like at least maybe it's a 3. Whereas if I read something that's a little bit out of genre, I might not like it. And I think I have this fear when I read books, and I'm like, I don't want to waste time on a book that I'm not going to enjoy, and then go into it knowing I'm probably not going to enjoy it. So that's a really long answer for what do I read. And I also realized I read the question wrong. It says, where do I read? Number 10 is, what kind of books do I like to read? So I'm just going to adjust that. Question 9, what kinds of books do I like to read? But then question 10, where do I like to read? I read literally anywhere. So I have a video that's coming out, I think next week. That could be a complete lie. I have a video that's coming out at some point, and it's basically like reading outside for 21 days. It started off to just be like, oh, to get some fresh air and stop being inside my house so much, but it ended up turning into like part of my morning routine, which I really appreciate. I think that's something I'm going to continue. So the first place I read is I go out on my porch and I read a book for 30 minutes to an hour to maybe longer, depending on the day of the week and what I need to do that day. But I also read like while I'm waiting for the bus and on the bus. So like while I'm commuting to and from work, I read there. I read when I do go to the gym. I'll bring my Kindle and I'll read while I'm on the treadmill. And then when I'm just chilling at home, I'll lay out on the couch and read there as well. So truly, I will read anywhere. I don't discriminate. Any place is a good place to read, and I stand by that. Thank you all so much for watching this video. And before I let you all go, this is a little segment I will have at the end of most of my videos. And I say most because I don't think I'll have them after Manga Mondays, just because I think that's going to be more of a supplemental video, like a bonus video that week, which the first one has already dropped. It's dropping literally the same day as this. It's going to be the Manga Monday for Our Dreams at Dusk. But at the end of every video, I want to ask you all a question that has been plaguing my soul, and I would just love your feedback. So one thing about me is I loved Glee growing up. I still love Glee today. Do I recognize that there is a lot of problematic content and behavior that takes place on that show? Absolutely. Do I still ride for this show with everything in my being? Also, absolutely. However, I think there are some people that should have been on the show that weren't. And I think that's a disservice. So a couple of examples. I recently saw Spring Awakening at my local theater, and it was fucking phenomenal. I'm obsessed. I listen to the cast album at least once a day. And if you know anything about Spring Awakening, you would know that the leads for the initial cast were Lea Michele and Jonathan Groff, who both played very prominent roles on Glee. What you may not know, however, is that there is another star that was in the original cast that had a cameo on Glee, but it was not nearly enough. And that is our boy, Skylar Astin. You will know him from Pitch Perfect. I think he was also on a show called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. I never watched it, but he's also like on Broadway right now in Little Shop of Horrors, which I think he relieves Jonathan Groff, which I absolutely love. And I learned this yesterday, that the director for Little Shop of Horrors right now is the director from Spring Awakening. So there's just like a whole lot of like Spring Awakening crossover happening right now, and I'm fucking living for it. Anywho, I think Skylar Astin should have been main Glee cast. And I found out that he auditioned for it when Lea Michele did. And I'm just like, what a missed opportunity. I love the original Glee cast, do not get me wrong. But I think he would have made an amazing Finn. An amazing Finn. Because this man can sing, this man can dance. And as much as I love Corey Monteith, rest in peace, he could not do either of those things fantastically well in the beginning. So imagine if we had a Skylar Astin as Finn Hudson. Imagine if we had a Skylar Astin as Puck. Imagine if we had a Skylar Astin as even Blaine. And I love Darren Criss. Like, I love Darren Criss. Skylar Astin would have still made an... Actually, fuck all that. You know who Skylar Astin should have played? Sebastian. Because can we just imagine Skylar Astin and Naya Rivera, also rest in peace, singing Smooth Criminal? Can we imagine? Y'all ears aren't ready for that. That would have been mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. That is one of my favorite duets in all of Glee. And they would have killed it together. Like, it would have been immaculate. You know who also should have been on Glee that didn't get on Glee? And like, I checked. They were doing like singing movies at around the same time. Jordan Fisher. Oh, he would have been so good. I think by the time he would have gone on, if he were to ever get on Glee, it would have probably been like season 3 or 4. So I don't know who he would replace, but I think if they just had an original character just based around him, so good, so good, so good. Like, that is leading man material. What a missed opportunity. As we're even talking about that in our whole little Dear Evan Hansen like spin-off at this point, Ben Platt also would have been really good on Glee. And like, he worked with Ryan Murphy. So I feel like once you work with Ryan Murphy and you're a favorite, he would have done everything for you. So I feel like if maybe they would have met earlier in life or whatever, I feel like Ben Platt would have killed on Glee. Like, he would have been so good, so good. And he would have been more age appropriate at that point in time. I'm not watching the Dear Evan Hansen movie for multiple reasons, and that's probably one of them. Who else should have been on Glee? Even Anna Kendrick would have been really good on Glee. Am I just kind of picking up people from Pitch Perfect and just saying, why didn't you do this instead? Maybe. I don't even care. But like, you were already doing it, so why didn't you just do it in Glee? You know who I could see Anna Kendrick being, actually? Sugar Moda. I could see her being Sugar and being so good at Sugar. Like, I know Anna Kendrick could sing. I fully recognize that. She would have been so good at Sugar. Who else should have been on Glee that wasn't on Glee? Let me know in the comments below. Went about my day and came back because I thought about this. Keke Palmer also should have been on Glee. She would have been so good. She would have been so good. She didn't even need to be like a main cast member. She could be like someone from a rival school, or I'm trying to remember what age she would have been at the time. Yeah, she could have easily been someone from a rival school. Like, why wouldn't you do that? What a missed opportunity. Keke would have been so good. So good. Ugh. Hire me if there's ever a Glee reboot. I got you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for sitting with me through this chaotic end as I start dreamcasting people into Glee that should have been in Glee, and honestly, it's a disservice that they weren't there. But thank you so much for watching this. If you like this video, go ahead and hit a like. If you like this kind of chaos that I think my channel is probably going to be, go ahead and subscribe. If you have any other Glee Dreamcast, put those in the comments below. But also, if you have any recommendations for books that are not contemporary but like feel contemporary, feel free to drop those in the comments below as well. I'm always trying to expand my reading palette. But thank you all so much for joining me today. I have 4 other videos that are already posted right now, so go ahead and check those out as well to just kind of get a taste of what my content is like. But thank you so much. I'll see y'all next time. Bye. Okay, bye.